Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is Carlos's producer, Justin. I was going to give you a little bit of a teaser for what today's episode is going to be about. So I did an interview with Don the Pleb and Matt Erickson of Kingpilled for my own show, the Fact Check This podcast. And Carlos popped in for a few minutes to ask some questions and get some takes from all of us about an article from Vanity Fair that he's going to be talking to the author in a couple weeks, and he wanted to get our takes on it. We all kind of come a little more from the right side of things. So this is Carlos on Fact Check This podcast, talking to myself, Don the Pleb, and Matt Erickson about Curtis Yarvin, Peter Thiel, The New Right, and the Vanity Fair article that Carlos is going to be reviewing with the author in a couple weeks. Hope you enjoy. But first, we've got a special cut in.
A word from our sponsor.
Well, actually, yes. Carlos is my one sponsor with the Paloma Verde CBD. Go check them out. I can't remember what my discount is. I think the discount code is FACTS. But we're going to let Carlos cut in because since he is going to be interviewing James Pogue, Carlos is going to ask us for our questions that we would have for James so that he can cover everything really well when he does this interview.
What's up, vatos?
How's it going?
What's up? What's up, Don? I've never met you, man, but I've heard good things about you, man. That you definitely throw some chingazos, you know.
That's the rumor.
No, man. Thanks, Justin, for letting me in. Yeah, for sure. You know what, guys? The I don't really read a lot of articles, but when I do read one, what I really try to embrace is the writer's struggle within it, you know, because whatever they're writing, that's just the shit around them, you know, but you know, they're struggling within it. So my thing is that when I was reading the whole article, it was almost like if I was watching visually a 12-round fight between this guy basically having the pressures of maybe his family, you know, you could tell he's a lefty, and also his bosses, but also who's gonna say what, so that was my main vein of why I reached out to this guy. You know, I mean, in researching him, I also I've never listened to Chapo Trap House, but I guess they put out a video about this article, and I guess that's the left side of whatever the fuck, the left kind of side. Yeah, man. I mean, I agree with whatever they said. And then I guess the good old boys had their take on it. And yeah, I also agreed with some stuff that they said. And I've also agreed with a lot of things that you guys are saying. So I take whatever I can get from wherever I can get it. But I guess the main question that I was going to ask him, and maybe the question to you guys is what did you guys think about I know we say, oh, he did a good job because he didn't talk shit about our side, but it shouldn't be that. It's you can almost see the guy struggling and fighting to write to almost come out to be fair. And isn't that what we always want, whether we're right or left? Is you just want shit to be fair, whether it's to you, the way you put it out or whatever. It's about just trying to be fair. But I don't know, man. I mean, I guess I could be wrong on that front, but that's kind of my main questioning to him. I might not even ask him questions for the first 30 minutes about the article. I want to know about his struggle and his upbringing on how he came to this article, you know?
So the fairness question, I think, is a particularly good one, right? But if it was me, and it isn't, the way I would phrase that is do you think you gave this community, this group, phrase it however you want, a fair shake, right? Or something right along those lines. Because the answer to that, one way or the other, will be very telling, right? Because with that, you go back and you read the article and you go, so this is literally what this guy thinks he saw all the time, right? He thinks it's a great representation, and that will color various statements in other ways, right? Now, presumably, the answer to this from every journalist ever is going to be, of course I did. It was totally unbiased. That's why I said he's always surrounded by incels because there were a bunch of dudes fapping under the table, wishing that they had women, or, whatever, right? But at the same time, if there's like any equivocation there, and everybody complains to me that I read too much into things, but that equivocation, that's where you're going to get, yeah, I think I gave him a fair shake. Well, like they are a bunch of weirdo righties. Like, yep, so you didn't. Got it. Right?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, it definitely sounds like he still had to throw some red meat to the Vanity Fair audience, right? So that's what that means to me. Like, I'm not gonna hold that against him. He had to throw a little something to the audience that he's playing to, as he's educating them on these terms that they've never heard about, right? I can kind of see him doing that. I kind of took the ending, his last thing on the end, see, because today I heard the reading of it on Skeptical Views or Skeptical Waves or something. Because I'm not a good reader, so I read it once and I thought it was interesting, but I'm a better listener. But the ending where he kind of said, "Yeah, we were outside of the hotel. We all waved each other by. What did you think?" And then they kind of said everybody took off, and then we all went back to our battle stations. That to me kind of was saying like, and that's what I kind of did this past weekend. And Matt was here and all that. It's like, once you party with people and drink with people and have a good time with people, we are just people. But of course, when you're not, then you got to go back to your battle stations and all that. I'm trying to get the battle stations and to kind of be lowered a little bit so we can communicate more. So like I kind of went to that. The ending kind of like was the main thing. Like he kind of gave us a view of like himself being normal, and then the ending going like, "Hey, but I'm still gonna then go back to my throwing chingazos to you guys at the end," kind of like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you guys thought. I know you guys didn't read the whole ending part of it, or you didn't get to.
But. I did. But so speaking of that, like what I was gonna say, my number one question for him would be, because obviously it wasn't just like hanging out for a night. Like this wasn't just a hour-long sit-down interview. Like he is going places with these people and he's doing stuff with them, and he's actually like spending legitimate amounts of time with these people, and regardless of what the group is, at least to some extent anyway, I think when you actually spend extended periods of time with people, it really humanizes them and creates a interpersonal connection that some of my best friends are psychotic commies, and I love them to death because we came up through high school and college together, and like I know that they would go to battle for me at the drop of a hat, even though they know I'm some sort of nut job pro gun anarchist. And it's the same for them. Like you can't spend extended periods of time with people without creating some even minor extent of a connection. So like my number one question for him would be like, having spent this time with these people and been around them, what has been your lingering connection? Have you noticed anything that you may think of or look at or approach slightly differently just from having been a part of that group for a while? Because like I said, like I think personally it's hard to spend time with people being normal and not take something away.
I think this is part of the effect, like the dehumanizing effect that technology has had on us. Not to go full Uncle Ted necessarily, or maybe I should. But
go full Uncle Ted.
Always go full Uncle Ted. I mean, not always.
I don't know.
He makes reference to that in the article too. Like he makes reference to how like our circles talk, refer to him as Uncle Ted. Like that's so. I love that part too.
What you've seen is that in the past, before social media specifically, if you were going to be connected to someone, you couldn't be passively connected to someone who wasn't in your immediate vicinity. Like you couldn't just have this general awareness of other people around you, of what everyone else around you was doing. There was like the specific people, like someone who might show up in a newspaper or something, but you didn't have this awareness where you could just like go and just like scroll a feed and just see what dozens or hundreds or thousands of people are all thinking and saying and doing that you have no personal direct connection to or investment with. And so then when you had human interactions with people, it was real. It was very, very real. And what's interesting is, as like this guy points out here, is you're talking about, as all of us have experienced, when you are physically interacting with someone else, the odds that you're going to actually come to blows with them over some type of political topic are pretty slim, honestly. Like it happens, of course, but it's far less common than it is that you're going to come to blows with someone over the internet when you're discussing the same topic. Generally speaking, when you're physically in the presence of someone, you know them personally face to face, you're exposed to their actual body, you don't have the same level of animosity or contempt for one another because you fundamentally recognize the humanity in each other. And because now the vast majority of our social lives are completely unnatural and bizarre, in the way that we're connected through technology and that we're actually able to interface with other people, but not actually have like literally have skin in the game and in connecting with them, it's distorted our ability to relate to other people and it's distorted our ability to understand what a community is, how community works, and how what my role in a community is supposed to be. I don't think that this is necessarily a like assuming that there's not going to be some kind of like coronal mass ejection that knocks out the grid and we go back to the Stone Age or something, but like assuming that we just kind of continue with life as usual, I don't think this is going to be something that persists forever. I think that relative to the existence of the human species, social media and this way of connecting to people through technology is just hardly, you couldn't even call it in its infancy. It's just barely begun. And so I think that over a long enough time period, we'll adapt to it. We'll figure out new ways to make it work, and our psyches will, especially kids who are born into it, our psyches will eventually sort of adapt around it. But it's going to fundamentally change the human species forever. We're going to evolve around this new way of interacting with other people, and it's going to change us. And if it doesn't force us to destroy ourselves, then by necessity, it's going to change us in a way. It's going to what's going to be retained are the good changes. The bad changes are going to eventually fall away unless the bad changes overwhelm the good ones and destroy us. I'm not going to bet on the end of the world because it'll only happen once. And when it does, I'm going to have bigger concerns. So my expectation is that in the long run, we'll adapt and we'll evolve around it and we'll get better. But for the time being, it's being borne out in all of our social systems that human beings just don't know how to relate to each other anymore.
So, a viewer of mine quite a long time ago said, I think social media is going to devolve into balkanization in the end. And what that's going to turn into is people who, like there will not be more Facebooks or Twitters, but there will be more Getters, more Truth Socials, more whatever, and there will be thousands of them. Because once people get over the probably first couple years of like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna rage tweet at everybody, it starts to become, I really only want to talk to people who I generally agree with, right? Like you don't need to agree on everything or even 50% of things, but like there will be a pro-abortion and a pro-life Twitter, right? And maybe that's the only thing that everybody agrees on, but everybody there will agree on. And it seems to have been a pretty good prediction because one, that seems to be the way it's going, and two, these are the only ways that conversations on the internet seem to function even barely, right? Because as soon as you get to a serious topic, what everybody does with text is immediately read everything the opposition says in the worst way humanly possible, right? So if it is abortion, right? Like, oh, you're pro-life, you think a one-celled organism is a human being, like, well, and probably, fertilized egg at least. Can we get that? No, okay. Fine. And then, equally you're pro-choice. And the problem with both of these is that, there's always somebody somewhere who said this, and then we map that onto everyone else with, whatever similar opinion. So whereas there are a ton of people who are pro-choice who are like, yeah, abort that kid at 12 years old. The vast majority of people who are pro-abortion don't believe that at all, right? Like, they probably never thought about it. They probably don't have a serious opinion. They're just like, yeah, well, I mean, it's not that bad, is it? Like, you get pregnant and I don't know, it's a ectopic pregnancy, so you have an abortion. That's what abortions are, right? And all of us who've done more than 2 minutes of reading are like, no, that is none of them. Like, that's a statistical zero. The fuck are you talking about? But
Yeah. Oh,
you get to pretend like everybody is the worst embodiment of whatever you're talking about, and then because of character limits and, let's be honest, bad writing somewhat tailored to character limits, you don't really ever have a conversation about basically anything. You just get to spurg at each other, and that's even true on Facebook, which doesn't realistically have a character limit, right? But no one sits and types out a long dissertation. Even if you do, what's the first thing you get in reply? I ain't reading that.
It's the whole
TLDR.
reason I started doing a show, because I would look at fact checkers and stuff like that and read through it, and then I would type out this big long thing explaining why everything that the fact checker said was wrong, and nobody would read it. But if I took 10 minutes to explain it in a video, then everybody would watch it. It was like, well,
Right.
nobody
Read the
reads,
exact same
so
post, right?
yeah, and then doesn't that like when Matt had said in the show, and I know he meant it with no disrespect about, yeah, if this guy is going to book an interview with me, yeah, somebody as small as me in audience reach or whatever, like very minimal, probably speaks more to that. There was nobody that just asked him, hey, can I interview you? But you guys know my style. My style is like, I don't give a fuck. I'll talk to anybody. So that speaks. Maybe it's a bad thing in our, whether it's on both sides, because both of those shows, right? I listened to the Good Old Boys and the Trapo House, and both of them kept on saying, well, I don't know this guy, but I think this. I don't know this guy, but okay, well, I ain't gonna say that shit. I'm gonna go talk to him. I'm gonna say. I mean, right now I'm saying it like, we're talking, but I'm gonna talk to him and find out what's up. But like, yeah, man, it's yes, all you guys are, yes. It shouldn't be like that. It should not be like. It should not. We should all just communicate more with the other side. I know they suck, but so what? Maybe they think we suck. It doesn't matter, man. Like, we're gonna live amongst each other, and I know we can separate from each other, but there's always gonna be lefty spirits, right? Matt talking about there's always gonna be lefty and righty spirits always intermingling amongst each other. And whether, depending on what the culture is or wherever you're at, you're always going to have this battle between the two. And maybe it doesn't always have to be a battle. Maybe it's about like, hey, give both sides a little drink and let's kind of, instead of battling, just kind of hang out a little bit and see, and let's find the humanity in all of us, because we all want good for our kids. We all want to be able to have our kids have another generation that is better than ours. So we all kind of want fundamentally the good things. And maybe that's what it speaks to in the article about how these guys, the right, have tapped into that part. And Matt was speaking to this too, that there's not really that message about, some of us just want to grow up, have a family, have some kids. Yeah, that isn't something that is that is taught, not taught, but that isn't articulated on the left, since they want you to go to the colleges and go to school and do all of this stuff. Okay, so we can just have a communication and say, man, you know what? I don't want to go to college and all that stuff. That's y'all shit, but I want to do this. Like, and there should be no beef about it, right? Like, we can all hang out and just chill. So, that's kind of my style. And anyway.
Carlos, are you new to this by chance?
Say what?
Are you new to this by chance?
When you say new, what do you mean by new?
A couple years.
No, man, I'm at first I got into like the sovereign citizen part of it, and then I got into Ron Paul in 07, and then I had a home foreclosure like in 07, 08, and then the Austrian economics explained why I had a home foreclosure, or why I probably overbuilt. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then my life was changed after that, basically.
Are you new to talking to the left?
No, man. I am I like to say that I'm a Bill Maher, Ron Paul libertarian. I came
That's
into politics from like Bill Maher, and I still watch Bill Maher because I feel he's in the same vein as this guy. So that's why maybe when you guys said like, oh, you guys didn't even know about this article. I just needed to read a little bit to be like, oh, I know what this is about. This is a lefty that's gonna be fair or try to be fair.
Yeah. Well,
You know, so I'm a smart guy.
That's why I ask, because look, I am notoriously brutal to the left, and I really have no intention of changing my stance to them. But in reality, there is about 10% of all people within margin of error, no matter how you sample it, that are the people I'm talking about. And a lot of the problem that everybody's having right now is those people are in control. Those people are getting their way. And so, like, if I am pretty hard right about pretty much everything. But, if my neighbor votes Democrat and generally is a decent person, then life's good. But I come from the shitholes of California where things like Antifa are not only common, but celebrated. And so when that 10% gets a hold of power, the first thing they do is go, no, we can't hang out, right? You are anathema. You're a terrible person. And I've watched them break up families. Like I have a friend of mine. We've been friends for 20 something years now. And not too long ago, him and his dad got in an argument over a tax rate. And his dad told him he was a Nazi and not to talk to him until he changed his mind. And I went, look, man, I wish I could say I was surprised, but that's how that portion of society goes. They're not interested in the talking to you part. For everybody else, right? Like, look, I don't think the vast majority of the right would give a damn if the left was playing even vaguely fair, right? But you go back to even David Horowitz talking about the 60s, and he said, it's there was like one of the first memes on the internet was Godzilla versus Bambi. And if you go watch even, 50, 60, 70-year-old video of Democrats talking to Republicans, that's what it is, right? The probably the best case of this was John McCain in 2008. And Obama and Biden are out there talking about how, McCain is this evil terror, and he only wants to get elected so he can kill brown people, and he wants to put black people back in chains. To be fair, that was a Mitt Romney thing from Biden. But, there's all this kind of, slavery is good. And according to McCain, blah, blah. And what does McCain say when one of his audience members says Obama was a Muslim? He says, no, look, he's a good man. We just disagree. Right. And this has been kind of the problem is, you only get to spit on my shoes so many times before I punch you in the face. And so, look, dear everybody who is like, not out there running, I don't know, shout your abortion, not threatening to burn down, SCOTUS homes right now because a court decision came out they didn't like, not burning down Minneapolis because a criminal got killed. Anybody who's not those people, yeah, we can probably get along just fine. But it's sort of like no matter what the circumstance, if you stepped onto my property and started shooting at my house, I would shoot back at you, right? And that's a lot of the problem is that they've been shooting a long time. And they're finally getting punched in the face, and they're really, really not happy about it.
Yeah, like you may not see that with this guy's article, but the left, by and large, especially over the last several years, I think there could be some concern, especially if this distant right starts to really kind of take hold and move forward and gain traction. The most dangerous animal is one that's got its leg caught in a trap because it's going to thrash and flail and do everything it can to not die. And it kind of feels like that's where a lot of that incredibly woke, progressive, like uber leftist faction is right now, because as we talked about earlier in the show, like there is sort of a distant left uh, part that is rejecting a lot of that as ridiculous, and then also you have the more boomer con type of leftists who never were on board with that to begin with. But like Don was saying, like that 10% believes that idealistically and like to their very core, they're also the loudest and the most insane. So it is kind of an interesting and even, I don't want to say dangerous, but it could very well become a dangerous time that we're kind of entering into here over the next 2, 3, 6 years.
It's interesting if you think about the different demographics, I guess, that make up the so-called left. You have like the boomer types that you were mentioning, which would really be like you might call them like the regime neo-libs. They're the really the heart and soul of the establishment. And then you've got it would be like the academics, and the academics are split between like kind of like weenie little soy boys who write articles. They're the stereotype, like the stereotype of the cuck who lives in Silicon Valley or San Francisco or whatever, and he's likely got a trust fund, and pays $5,000 a month in rent so he can say that he lives in the Bay Area, and but like the guy's not gonna he would step down from an angry woman. He's not gonna do anything. And then you have the like the shock troops are generally not actually, how would I say this? They're not the smart ones. They're not the intellectuals or the academics. The shock troops are typically the ones who are actually running around, raging, burning down cities, and committing crimes and stuff. They're products of their age. These are like low IQ people who are, if they weren't running around burning down cities for some political cause, they'd be running around burning down cities for their own cause. They're the types of unhinged, low IQ criminals that every society has, that are just using the political thing as an outlet, and they're being specifically mobilized and weaponized by the brain trust above them.
They're the ones that if you ask them about the ideology behind what they believe and what these principles are that are supposed to be so important to them societally, they have absolutely no fucking clue.
They'll just give you sound bites.
Yeah, they couldn't even tell you. They don't even have a personal like a personal story for how they came to that. Like every one of us on this chat right now, we all have something that brought us to this point, and there is a catalog of things that our ideals and our principles are built on. Those people don't have that. Like it's an inch deep and a mile wide, and there's nothing there.
So do you guys know who Vladimir Jaffe is?
No.
Oh man, you should look up this guy's YouTube channel, because it is, every single video is an example of what Justin was just saying. He goes out to crazy wackadoodle leftist protests, and he's like, "So, tell me about your ideology." And you're like, "Well, I'm a communist, but I'm really more of a Maoist than like a traditional communist." Really? What do you know about Mao and Maoism? I'm like, he was just better at communism.
Yeah, but we also can't ignore, and this is not like my original shit. This is something like that Thad Russell has mentioned before, and that's actually how I got into the Thad Russell scene. Was that he said that those type of people were probably buzzed out, feeling pretty good, and those were the ones that Martin Luther King used as leverage to the riots. It was like, hey, you want to fuck with us? the church people, or you want to fuck with the ones that are on the streets doing some shit.
Yeah.
So sometimes those people do create change. It's not right what they're doing. You know, if they funneled that energy more politically, they can do probably better changes for whatever they wanted for their agenda. But you know, there is something behind burning some shit down. And Justin, you talked about, you know, I don't know the history behind it, but I know there's some like whiskey rebellion shit. I don't know so these motherfuckers wanted whiskey and they were getting taxed and they were, so whatever sometimes you need those people to create change. And I'm not defending them. I'm just saying, like, we can't just say, oh, they're, I'm just saying they exist, and people, yes, there's people that can use them for their advantages or disadvantages, but they exist. So it's a reality that we have to, like, contend with,
where I was going with it was that these types of people are a threat entirely because of the people who stand behind them, who are manipulating the system to ensure that they're not going to pay the consequences of being violent. So they're like cultural mercenaries almost, where they're a weapon waiting for somebody to wield them. So if you want to prevent them, I'm not actually driving toward a solution here. I'm trying to describe the problem. That if you want to prevent them from being a threat to you, then you either have to put yourself somewhere where they're not going to be interested in attacking, or you have to disarm the person. You treat them like a weapon, and you don't attack the weapon. You attack the person that is wielding the weapon.
Yeah. Well, so this goes back to a couple things that we've talked about already. One of them is the social media thing. Keyboard cowboys are a real thing, and the longer social media perpetuates, the worse they'll be. And where you see that become very obvious is when people suffer consequences for their actions of any variety ever, right? So if you go burn down buildings and you're not in a major lefty city, cops start showing up and throwing handcuffs on people. And even if all they do is put 50% of you in the drunk tank for the night, that stuff stops happening quite as much. If you go to a guy's house, you go to a couple's house and you're rolling your riot through their gated community, and one of them walks out with an AR-15 and the other with a pistol, guess what stops? Right then and there. That mob stops on a dime. Hey, I don't want to get shot in the face. There's a consequence here. It's very obvious. And maybe they'll go to jail later, but nobody wants to be the first one to catch a bullet, right? And so the internet divorces you very quickly from consequences, right? If you're on the left anyway, right? If you post kill all white people on Twitter, nothing happens to you. It doesn't matter, right? And that's the same thing going on in Seattle. If we riot, if we throw bricks through windows, no consequences. And we know it. Oh, and by the way, if anybody so much as gets arrested for this, we march down to the police station, we tell the DA about how racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobic they are, and they let our boy out. And they do that because they too need to be immune from the consequences when the day comes, right? And so you can't ever let that go if you're trying to stay immune from consequences. The moment there is a consequence enforced that proves there's a consequence, and all this falls apart. And while that doesn't sound like two things, it indeed is, right? And this is what stops the madness. And this is why we have police. This is, why there is someone who enforces general order. And when that doesn't happen, when you get to a small enough community where people are, if you go to a town with 40 people in it, you try to start a bar fight, 40 people are going to kick your ass. That's what's going to happen, right? Because they don't want you there. They don't want you causing problems. And they know if they kick your ass, the likelihood you come back is pretty much zero. And so, problem solved. You have met your consequence. And the problem that we run into very seriously is that once you escalate to using real force, that consequence is going to involve real force. And it has to. It has to involve at least a guy with a billy club, at least a guy, who is going to taser you, pepper spray you. And let's be honest, if it's you against 50 people, it's probably going to involve somebody catching a bullet in the face if they're not willing to stop. And nobody wants to be that guy who even says that out loud. Because as soon as, oh, really? You want to go, you start an army, you just beat the hell out of the leftists? No, I'm just telling you how it is. People respond to incentives. That's just life. And by the way, getting hit in the face with 5 pounds of cherry wood is a pretty good incentive.
Did you see the videos of when Antifa was tromping around through Yucaipa, California last year? And
Yeah.
a whole gang of guys came out and just dragged him into the ditch and just beat the piss out of him.
Oh, yeah.
It was so extremely gratifying.
Exactly, right? And like, finally, somebody, and of all places, California, right?
Right, of course, yeah. It's funny, if you get out in that part of California, that's straight Trump country. That's basically where we moved from. And I saw more Trump bumper stickers and Trump flags and stuff there than I saw Biden or Bernie or Liz Warren or anything else.
That's funny.
It's crazy. And it's 70 miles from downtown LA, and it's one nonstop metro area all the way out to there.
Yeah, so just to be not clear or just straight up, is that it might come off like I'm defending the left, but remember, I live amongst the left, right? So I live amongst. So like when the right always shows this map about, oh, look at the red everywhere, and then the little blue spots are the ones that like voted the most for everything, all that shit. Okay, well, in my little blue spot, I'm just trying to neutralize as much as I can, man, in my own way, and that's it. And so I'm just trying to lower the temperature in my little blue spot, and that's okay. So I want people in my reach just to be like, oh, you know what, Carlos, he's a righty. Yeah, am I gonna vote? No, I'm not gonna. Like, I want the lefties to be like, nah, I'm not gonna vote, man. They're all right. They're like Carlos. They're all right. They're out there somewhere. No pedo. It's okay. They're just chilling. They don't want to be bothered. Okay, so that's all I'm trying to do. So I'm not trying to come off as like I'm defending, like, because Don, you kind of asked me like, how long have you been doing this? As if maybe like I haven't had a lot of interactions with the left enough to feel like threatened enough to like. I'm just saying like, no, I live amongst them. They're all my homies, but like it's just the way it is,
I don't mean to be like patronizing or anything, but like there are two different kinds of encounters with the left, right? And I lived amongst a lot of them for a long time, and most of them are like hippie stoner, like, why can't we all just get along, kind of, well, douchebags. And look, they're all right as long as you're doing something that you both enjoy, right? Like, I mean, I never ceased to play pool with them or go bowling or whatever. Like, whatever it was we were doing, that was cool. But there comes a point when dealing with the left, if you talk even vaguely negatively about them for a while, like, they come for you, and they come for you hard.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been getting warned about people have been telling me like, these people aren't your friends. Don't, be careful and all that stuff. But I guess I'm at the point where like I have my network of people that matter to me the most so tight that I don't care what anybody says about me or says about whatever. Like, my shit's so tight that, and when I'm talking about my network is mostly lefties around me,
Hey, man, you work with what you got.
But you work with what you got. So like, it's okay. So, but yeah, I hear you, man. Like, I understand. Trust me. I understand what you're saying.
Before I forget, because I'm gonna, you in the past, like, couple minutes there were like, yeah, man, I just want him to get him out. Get to be like, yeah, I don't want to vote. Whatever, these guys are cool. That is the best use of the phrase "complacency kills" I have ever heard in my life. That is amazing. Make them complacent because complacency kills. I approve entirely.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do a little bit with like my football idea of I'm trying to unify so I do want hooligans, but I just want them to be for a Texas World Cup victory, so that's on my podcast, and I don't want to get on this is Justin stuff, man, but you know what, also for this guy, the guy that I'm going to interview, one of the things too that that in listening to you guys, and the question that came up that I thought was important was that a lot of these dissident lefts were kind of Bernie people, but a lot of us were Ron Paul people. So we kind of saw the system do us dirty earlier. So we're more mature in how the system is dirty politically against someone that we really believe in, that we think that could create a change. You know, like they did Bernie dirty in 2012, in 2008 when he was running. Like that was Obama. You know, you can't, everybody kind of had to be like, oh, the first black guy is gonna win. You just kind of almost kind of like, fuck, that, you gotta kind of like lay your arms down. It is what it is. But in 12 and 16, yeah, they did them dirty. So like they kind of so we're more mature in it. So one of the questions was gonna be like that I got from listening to you guys in the beginning was, what the maturity that that he's getting out of asking these 20-year-olds or these 30-year-olds or Curtis or his girlfriend and all. We've been in the game a little bit longer, and so we're more mature like that. So that was kind of the question, is like, how much more mature are we, or are we just reacting to the system that was in front of us? Like, or is the left gonna just be like, yeah, that's just the way it is? Because so I'm sorry, I'm already kind of like a little buzzed, but I'm rolling right now, man. Check it out. So on Curtis Yarvin one time on Thad, when he interviewed him the second time, man, and I'll take this shit to heart, man, because I love this shit. He said, oh yeah, of course, Trump lost the election. They cheated him out, but you know what? The Democrats cheated fair and square, and I'll never forget that, man, because I just thought, yes, that's exactly the game right there. Both sides cheat fair and square, and that's just the way it is. And as long as you're cheating fair and square, and even though how when I'm saying that it doesn't sound right, it doesn't compute, I could see Matt say that fucking computes. Yeah, you could cheat fair and square, man, and that's okay. And ever since that, I thought, you know what, the game is different. The game is the game. Keep it at a distance. Make sure your game is tight, and then after that, it is what it is.
The way that I take that, they treated fair and square is essentially, yeah. So they cheated. So
that's what was
that's the nature of the system. And if you think that that's not, then you're not equipped to engage with it.
I was talking to my morning show guys about something the other day, and I can't remember what the topic was, but anyway, when it got brought up, I was like, oh, well, I could do this, and like I could game the system and just like screw every one of y'all and win. And they're like, of course you go to cheating. I was like, if you're not cheating, you're not competing right. Like if it's a competition, unless there's real consequences for cheating, you would be stupid not to. So
if you aren't cheating, you aren't playing.
Right. So obviously, I'm going to look for whatever opportunity I have to cheat. I mean, you can call it cheating. It's only cheating because you didn't win.
So this is sort of like the stealing in California thing right now, right? Like, oh, it's wrong. What's the penalty? Nothing. Okay, well, so why is it wrong again?
It's if you have a problem with the cheating, you don't understand that politics and war are on a continuum. And if you're in a war, you're fighting someone to the death. There's no such thing as cheating. It's who can kill the other guy faster and while sustaining the least amount of damage. Politics is the same spirit. We've put a whole bunch of layers in between to try to civilize it, but all we've done is just distort the game and make people play it poorly. It's still the exact same game. It's still, politics is still just war by another name, and you have to approach it like that.
Yeah,
this is why I'm a really big fan of our mutual friend, our mutual friend here, Andrew from Popular Liberty, with the plan that he's working on, his anti-tax plan with the GOP Mises Caucus. A lot of the stuff he's talked about publicly he hasn't even gotten into a lot of the meat of it. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in there, and this is the big part of it, is that it's essentially cheating. He's not playing the game fair. He's finding loopholes, and he's finding ways that you can take advantage of the way the game is played, ways that you can take advantage of the system, specifically through lobbying.
Soda and tequila.
And he's working at ways to subvert the system based on its own rules, which are premised on the people who win are the ones who subvert the system correctly.
Yeah, dude, Matt, dude, oh, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so check it out, Matt. Yeah, dude. So like every month I get my hey, thank you for donating to the GOP Mises caucus, $25. But dude, I want that I want to slowly as I can add a zero, add a zero, add a zero, add a zero. But how am I going to add those zeros? Well,
No.
no, check it out. I can work in the private sector and try really fucking hard, or I can go bid on government jobs like I do, and then add zeros to that donation as I'm trying. So like the game is the game, man. You know what I mean? You gotta, so that is my thing. Is like that's what I'm trying to get people to be like. See, I used to think so before I got into politics. We slowly, as a family, started getting into like government bidding and government jobs. And then when I got into it, and then I got political, I was like, there was something ugly about. I felt a little like hypocritical, right? Like I was like, oh, I want to minimize government, but I'm trying to win these government jobs, right? But over time, actually, in the last probably COVID, listening to like Buck, Matt, a lot of these shows, I kind of started thinking, well, fuck it. They're trying to steal my money out of my pocket before I even got into the game. Well, now that I'm in it, I'm going to fucking get as much money as I can so I can like change the game up in my own way. So that's it, man. So like, yeah, exactly, man. Yes. I am on that. That to me, Matt, just so you know, is Kingpilled. It's just fucking like doing whatever you got to do to win. So
see, that is the it's a war kind of mentality, right? Because look, if I'm in a war and whoever it is that is shooting at me, right, like one of them drops a gun, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's their weapon. I won't pick it up to shoot their friend. and that's just silliness. That's never going to happen. But it's how we try to play politics, right? It's how we try to play this game that is the political game. It's like, oh man, I realized that the opposition over there would stab me in the face in a heartbeat, but I'm so much better than. No, you're not. Shut up. Stab in the face. Whatever your objective is, you better work for it like that, or just don't bother at all. Just go home because this game ain't for you.
Yeah, exactly, Don. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I remember the time before I thought that this was the game. Wait, hold on. Let me rephrase that. There was a time when I wasn't playing this game, and life was a lot easier, but it was fucking boring.
Yeah.
And you know what? Now it's a lot more fucking interesting, And so, I'm not saying like interesting on a lot of fronts, because also when you get in the political game, you are bringing in your family too a little bit. There's not 100. Matt, you might know this. Just if any of us or Don, if you're bringing in your families a little bit into this thing. It's not clean cut. Where I'm just so there is some of this stuff, and my family knows what I'm into. The immediate family knows what I'm into, and they're okay with it. I've got them to be like to the point where they're like, well, that's just Carlos, that's just Carlos. It's just the way it is. But they will defend me, just like how Justin said about his communist amigos. They'll defend me to the end, and that's really who you want beside you, right? The people that defend you to the end.
This subject here, I was just looking at this tweet thread the other day. I was remembering it. There's this phrase, manipulating procedural outcomes. And this is a thread that was tweeted. This was back in 2018. This guy tweeted this thread. Let me pull up this other thing. Okay, so he said, the most underrated and underdiscussed phrase in Moldbug's corpus is manipulating procedural outcomes. Moldbug spotted this phrase on a minor cathedral functionary's blog, and he links to it, and it's the blog for Timothy Burke, if anybody is aware of him. Timothy Burke is at Bubba Prague on Twitter. And he wrote a blog post called Competency as a Cultural Value, And it starts off with, earlier this week on NPR, I heard a man on the street segment. So that gives you an idea of who the guy is. He's a guy who listens to NPR seriously. And the part where he used the phrase manipulating procedural outcomes is, let me find it here again real quick. So he says, so this is quoting from Timothy Burke, the minor cathedral functionary. He said, "I am drawn to procedural liberalism because I live in worlds that are highly procedural, and my skills and training are adapted to manipulating procedural outcomes. I think the trashing of the Department of Justice is bad for all Americans, but the fact is, I also am aware that it's likely to be particularly bad for me and people like me. People with money, education, and a familiarity with the procedural world of law and government can navigate the legal system if need be, but only as long as it is a system where its declared aspirations for fairness and political neutrality at least vaguely match its practices, where the people who work the system have some kind of internalized commitment to those values." That gives you an idea of the context of the guy who's using manipulating procedural outcomes. He's explicitly saying that me and my cultural milieu have mastered the art of manipulating procedural outcomes. That's what we do for a living within the Department of Justice. So back to the thread from the guy talking about Yarvin. He said, Moldbug's comment on this gem, quoting from Moldbug: "My entire post and maybe even my entire blog reduced to 3 words. If you want to know how you are governed, this is it. You are governed by manipulating procedural outcomes. It's perfect. It belongs on someone's tomb." Close quote. Back to the guy on the Twitter thread. Whenever you think of procedural shenanigans today, whether it's a district court in bumfuck Hawaii blocking the president's immigration order, or your college kangaroo court hanging innocent men out to dry over bogus sexual assault charges, this is what's happening. Conservatives in the United States can chiefly be identified by their faith in the sanctity of the procedure. They believe that if they follow the procedure, they can win. This is another angle into why conservatives are eternal losers. The modern regime rules by manipulating procedural outcomes, so you cannot actually count on the procedure. Proceduralist conservatives therefore have a view of, say, the media as having a certain duty. But that's the legitimacy the cathedral has conferred on it, and the conservatives believe it. Gamergate saw the sausage made in real time, and it shocked many a naive center-left gamer. Here was procedural manipulation happening in the open. Op-eds written, false news formulated, upon which further studies created by the academic complex all paint gamers as monsters. And then he goes on, he says, how does it actually work? Strap in. So then he explains how they establish the procedure, they get everybody playing by it, and then they begin creating exceptions to the procedure. This is the whole nature of the system in a nutshell. And to bring it back around to my tired old hobby horse, this is why trying to defeat the system by rallying your troops around some irrelevant third party is precisely this. This is precisely it. You're trying to play by the procedure against an enemy that lives by manipulating procedural outcomes.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome, dude. Check it out, dude. It's like I interviewed Wilfred Riley. He's a dude that like kind of like counter narratives a bunch of stuff, and the one takeaway that I took in my life, or the one takeaway out of that whole conversation that I had with them about all kinds of how like racism isn't real. Maybe there's like a 1 or 2% better outcome if you're white, but 1 or 2% ain't really shit. You know, all these narrative breakers. When he was describing his upbringing, he kind of said that he went to different types of educational schools and you know, like Ivy League, not Ivy League, but like just different schools. But he said, but what he did say was that when I went to lawyer school or law school, that's how I knew how the game was played, right? So it was about going to. So that's what I took away, and I remember thinking like, so listening to you right now sounds to me like what procedures. Remember, there's street procedures, and there's actually the procedures of like law and shit like that. You know, is that what you're talking about? Like, or what are you talking about? What kind of manipulation?
Hey, Carlos, I'm going to cut you off, and I'm going to drop you out because I really need to wrap this up. We've gone quite a bit longer than what I was intending to tonight. Hopefully that gave you some good stuff to work with to talk to the guy.
Can I give him a super short answer to his question?
Yeah.
So the near perfect definition of this in real practice is Bill Clinton saying it depends on the definition, what the definition of is.
Yep. It's all procedures. It's all procedures across all fronts. the entire system, the entire spirit of the system is not just law. This, like, the entire system is all bureaucracy. It's all corporate bureaucracy from the bottom to the top. And the whole thing is all just about manipulating the procedural outcomes, establishing the procedural outcomes, and then manipulating them for the insiders, manipulating them in favor of their own people against the outsiders.